welcome to episode 28 of the Tuesday Talk IU Athletics podcast, joined by Director of Athletic Communications Larry Dealman and Student Assistant Connor Kikowski. I am Sports Information Director Andy Alvarez, bringing you results and news from this past week's action and previewing the week ahead in Immaculata Athletics. Last week, men's volleyball concluded their 2026 campaign with a United East Conference playoff match against Gallaudet. Flag football dominated their week against Penn State, Schuylkill, and Centenary, and baseball and softball each earned a win on Thursday. So let's get started with looking back at past week's results in Immaculata Athletics. The flag football team swept their week with 3 out of 4 wins, with one being a forfeit. They actually won 3 out of the 4 games, and they get credit for a forfeit. On Tuesday, they went up to Centenary and took on Penn State Schuylkill, winning 33-6. Devin Cosgrove went 17 for 21 passing for 183 yards with 4 touchdowns. Eliana Szatkowski had 6 receptions for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns in receiving and a 25-yard interception return. And then they took on Centenary in the second game of that tri-match, and they won 44-0. Devin Cosgrove was 12 for 16 passing for 135 yards and 6 touchdowns, giving her 10 TDs on the day. Eliana Szatkowski, Jacqueline Molinini each had 2 receiving touchdowns. Teresa Joppa had 10 solo tackles with 2 interceptions and 2 pass breakups. She also, I believe, took one back 75 yards for a touchdown in that game as well. And Taylor Egan had an interception. Then on Thursday, they went up to Penn State Schuylkill to play 2 games against the same 2 teams. After their game with Penn State Schuylkill, Centenary claimed they had an injury in the game and felt they were going to be unable to field the team, so they forfeited the game and left. Hence, Immaculata was credited with a victory via forfeit. In their other game against Penn State Schuylkill, Immaculata, though it was a little bit of more of a challenge than the previous meeting, they won 27-6. They were able to pull away in the second half. Devin Cosgrove was only 5 for 17 passing for 55 yards, but still threw 3 touchdown passes. She was credited with an interception that was not actually hers. It was actually on a halfback option pass. It was miscredited to her by the statistics. We're working to get that corrected. So she actually did not throw an interception in that game. Frankie Brunkel had 7 carries for 54 yards. Taylor Egan had 1 reception for 19 yards and a touchdown. Eliana Szatkowski got 2 receptions for 18 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. Kalia Gaines had 7 total tackles, 6 solo, and 3 tackles for a loss. And then Taylor Egan actually only had 1 interception. The other one was Eliana Szatkowski. She was credited with 2 in the stats. They outscored their opponents 104-12 in that last week. Oh, yes, and Teresa Joppa also had another pick six. I believe that was about a 22-yard pick six on that one, 22, 25 yards. Money Max swept the conference awards this week. Devin Cosgrove was named the player of the week, and Teresa Joppa was named the defensive player of the week. Up next is a big tri-match at Draper Wall Stadium on Saturday morning. They will take on Eastern, and then they'll play Marywood for the first time. That will be starting at 10 a.m. with Immaculata taking on Eastern in a rematch of the game earlier this year, one of the top teams in the conference. Then Marywood and Eastern will play at 11:30, and then Immaculata will take on Marywood at 1 p.m. in the final game of that tri-match. It's a good week for flag football, guys. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, good week for flag football, just utter domination across the board. And, like you said, 104-12 outscoring your opponents is just insanity. I mean, I think we had something earlier this season. It was like that scoring margin. Just no, they did not allow Centenary and Penn State Schuylkill any opportunities whatsoever. Devin Cosgrove, 10 touchdowns in a single day is amazing. And, just some great defensive play overall, great offensive play. 3 touchdowns in a game on 3 receptions is pretty good. And this is a big one on Saturday against Eastern. It was a 45-0 shutout at their place, and now they're coming here. So I know the Mighty Macs will be trying to even that season series, and, Marywood will see what they can do as well. And, just continuing to stack up wins and just a lot of great contributors this year, especially the freshmen. Devin Cosgrove and Taylor Egan being freshmen. It's just great to see the young players getting a lot of playing time. And yeah, we'll see what happens in these last couple weeks.
It's definitely had a lot of success last week. It's good to see. I mean, everyone works together. Everyone's always contributing. The defense has been very rock solid for them. all games they played, even the difficult ones where they didn't come out on top. But it's definitely good to see, and we're looking forward to a good try match on Saturday.
All right, let's move over to men's volleyball. Men's volleyball fell to Gallaudet 3-1 on Thursday in the United East Conference first round. So their 2026 campaign has officially come to a close. And the Mighty Macs played 3 matches overall last week. They were at Wilson, at Wilkes, and then hosted Gallaudet. Against Wilson, it was a 3-0 final. Noah Zunski, a team high 7 kills, and Luke Dortenzo had 23 assists and 8 digs. Against Wilkes, another 3-0 final. Josh McGurl logged 9 kills, 3 solo blocks, and 7 digs. Luke Dortenzo, 15 dimes, and Brandon Lieberman had 2 aces. Now, the thing about those 2 matches, the Wilson match was the one that decided playoff seeding. And with that defeat, the Mighty Macs got the 4th seed in the conference standings. There was like a tie, and I think there was like overall sets, and Karen was able to pole vault over Immaculata, and they got Newman, and then we got Gallaudet. So that was a big one. Unfortunately, did not go our way. And then the Wilkes one was a non-conference match. So we played a non-conference match, and then the next day was the playoff match. So a lot of volleyball was being played last week. And then against Gallaudet, unfortunately, a 3-1 final in favor of the Bison. The first set was a 26-24 win for the Mighty Macs. I like to call them a set overtime when you go past 24 points. Gallaudet won the last 3 sets, 25-20, 25-17, 25-22. Josh McGurl got the double-double of 21 kills and 11 digs, and he had 4 total blocks, 2 solo, 2 assisted. Luke Dortenzo finished with 37 assists to wrap up his freshman year. McGurl, Michael Prawl, and Alex Corsones each had an ace. The Mighty Macs held on for a while, but Gallaudet kept momentum in those final 3 sets and were able to get that win. The men's volleyball team finished the 2026 campaign 6-11, but 5-3 in the United East Conference. Guys, some big improvements from volleyball this year. First year in the United East Conference, really putting on a show in those matches. And for a first-time team in a new conference, doesn't matter who it is. That's pretty impressive. But unfortunately, Gallaudet was the winner on Thursday.
Yeah, I definitely think it was a good season for our men's volleyball team. Definitely getting a good start in their time in the United East Conference. With a successful season, winning 5 matches and going 5-3, I believe, in the regular season. Yeah, tough playoff result. I think by the end of the year, with a small roster, they were a little beat up in terms of injury wise and everything like that. So I think the season kind of took its toll on them, but they were competitive, and it was a competitive match. They had opportunities in that match. And I think it was a good first season, and look forward to seeing what can be done as they have some new people already, some new players coming in. I see they're announcing some commitments. I think it's going to be they have a bright future in that conference going forward.
Yeah, good first season for men's volleyball in the United East Conference. I also think another big help for them was adding our women's coach, Mary, to this coaching staff. Definitely helped bring a lot of unity together, and she's really good at recruiting and has definitely already shown her ability to get a lot of players out here for both the women's and men's teams, so they're in good shape heading down the line. Switching gears to softball. Softball had a 1-3 last week. They played Eastern in a doubleheader, and then they had a conference game here on Thursday against Centenary. Starting off with Eastern, for game 1, 4-0 was the final, and 3-1 was the final for game 2. Eastern was receiving votes in the National Fast Pitch Coaches Association Top 25 poll, so you knew they were going to be good coming into it. Game 1 was a pitching clash on both sides, with Eastern scoring the only runs of the game in the 4th inning. Carly Kotcher logged Immaculata's lone hit of the game. Sarah Pearson went all 7 innings with 2 strikeouts. Eastern's pitcher threw 16 strikeouts, including retiring the Mighty Mac's first 10 batters on strikeouts. I believe she was only a freshman too, so definitely showing her ability there in the collegiate level. In game 2 against the Eagles, Carly Kotcher had the lone run, and she logged 2 hits. Emma Pinto was responsible for an RBI. Nadia Boya went 7 innings with a strikeout on the hill. The game was tied 1-1 until the Eagles scored 2 in the top of the 7th to eventually put the game away. Now switching gears against the Cyclones, in game one, 6-4 was the final in favor of Centenary, and 8-7 was the final on a walk-off wild pitch for the Mighty Macs. In game one, Jamie Green had 2 runs. Carly Carter earned 3 hits in 3 at-bats with 2 ribbies. Sarah Peterson saw a strikeout in 3 innings. In game two was an offensive showcase with 5 Mighty Macs runs in the first inning. 4 of the first 5 runs were RBI doubles. The other was an RBI triple. Despite Immaculata being up as much as 7-1, Centenary did storm back with 5 runs of their own in the fourth, and they tied it in the sixth. Carmelita Gigante, who was pinch running, walked it off on a wild pitch. Emily Davis had 2 runs. 4 players each logged 2 hits, while 5 had a ribby. Jessica Vito got the pitch and win in 4 innings with a strikeout. Carly Carter also made the AEC Weekly Honor Roll this week, and she also logged her 100th career hit in Game 2 against Centenary. So that was great to see. They are at St. Elizabeth today, April 7th at 3 and 5 p.m. for a doubleheader with the Eagles. So a big doubleheader down there. You definitely want to try to get a sweep and gain some momentum in the conference. But not quite the game you wanted to see last week in Game 1 against Centenary, but definitely, again, that big walk-off win on a wild pitch in Game 2 was definitely helped the softball team.
Yeah, a interesting stretch last week for softball. That first game against Eastern was, it was just a defensive battle. And, there was really not much the Mighty Macs could do in that first game because Eastern's pitcher was on a heater. 16 strikeouts, 10 of them being the first 10 batters. And I believe the first 9 were swinging strikeouts. I mean, she was you got to tip your hat if you're the opponent there, but only 4 runs given up, and it was just that 1 inning. So you were in it the entire time. It's not like it was a blowout or anything. Even the second game, 3-1. So you were only outscored 7-1 on the day against a team that was in a top 25 poll. That's pretty good. There's not much that you can complain about there. And Eastern being in the MAC Commonwealth, there's a lot of good teams in there. So, you got to just, respect your opponent on that one. And then against Centenary, I was there for that while you two were with me for the first game. And then you guys went over to baseball, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I was there for the second game as well. And it got a little cold. I'm not going to lie. It got a little cold at the end. I was starting to shiver. And, I was just like, I was hoping we could get the win. And I was just hoping both sides would just start speeding the game up. And I'm like, anyway, come on. Like, we can do it. What was hilarious was that it was the bottom of the 7th inning in the second game. And obviously, we had to get volleyball started too. I'm still shivering. We loaded the bases, or we had a woman on first and third. I think we had like an out at second or whatever. Carmelina Gigantes on third. She was a pinch runner. And I was just thinking to myself out loud, like not like too loud, just like out loud to myself. And I was like, watch this next pitch be a pass ball. Like, wouldn't that be funny? What was the next play? A wild pitch, and we won the game. And I was like, stop it. So I couldn't believe it. The girls were all happy, and it was definitely time for me to run inside to get volleyball started and to, get warmth back in my body. So that was fun. And it was a great way to end the doubleheader and to go into Easter weekend with a win, getting that split against Centenary and, staying alive in the playoff race. Hopefully they can at least get a split today, if not a sweep at St. Elizabeth.
Yeah, that was it was good to get that for them to get that win on Thursday, finish out strong. They do to be a interesting doubleheader up there. I wrote the preview for the games with St. Elizabeth, and it looks like they can do some hitting actually. St. Elizabeth. Be interesting to see how Immaculata does up there. They hopefully they could either get the split or get the sweep, and try to build some momentum in the standings. And they also will be home on Thursday when they take on Widener in a doubleheader. So I know that's your old stomping grounds there, Larry, coming here for a visit on Thursday. So that should be interesting. Moving along into baseball, the Immaculata baseball team had 3 games last week. They had a rough one up at Penn State Abington on Tuesday, falling 21-9 in 8 innings. Penn State Abington pulled away with 7 runs in the 6th inning and 8th innings. Hunter Whitesell and JT Luther each had 2 runs scored. Nick Turnage recorded 3 hits. Matt Passerini cleared the bases with a double in the 6th. And Matt Swart started on the hill with 4 strikeouts in 3 2/3 innings. On Wednesday, they returned home to face a very strong Swarthmore team who had been receiving votes in the D3Baseball.com top 25 poll, and they fell 18-4 in 7 innings. The Garnet scored 12 runs in the top of the first to really set the tone. Logan Bart ended up scoring 2 runs for Immaculata. Hunter Weitzel had 3 hits and 3 at-bats. 4 players on team each had an RBI. Thomas DeSarno had gotten the start, and it's really, kind of the first time all season he's had a, kind of a tough start. He'll look to bounce back this week. On Thursday, the Money Macs were back in action, and they earned a 14-4 win in 7 innings over Cairn University. 4 players recorded 2 runs scored each. Joey Mazzone had 3 hits and 3 at-bats with 2 RBIs. Mazzone tied 3 other players with 2 RBIs in the game. I believe Nick Turnage had a pair of RBIs in that game as well. Alex LePage earned the win, pitching 5 innings, retiring 7 batters, and with 7 Ks, I believe. And then Turnage and Alex LePage were named to the AEC Weekly Honor Roll this week. So that was a good result for them. It's good to see Alex LePage bounce back with a real strong start, and Nick Turnage to, he's going to be an important bat for this team going down the stretch as they battle for playoff spots. So it's good to see him stepping up his game there in that spot. The Money Macs will be back in action on today, actually, when they visit Stockton this afternoon. I'm actually down the shore in New Jersey at my family's shore house in Bargate. Going to be heading over to that game in a few minutes. So I'll be heading over there to check out a little bit of our baseball team in action today. And what are your guys' thoughts on baseball for the week?
Yeah, the Karen game is definitely a nice bounce back to 2 strong opponents. And the Penn State Abington game, I mean, they were in it for a little bit there. The Nittany Lions ran away with it towards the end, but the Karen game was definitely good to see, and good to see LePage bounce back after a difficult game against Gwinnett the past weekend. So they got a big series against Newman here this weekend. So they're going to need bats like Turnage and Weitzel and Mazzone to really help them battle with the Knights.
Like you guys said, just a good bounce back game after some really tough defeats. Penn State Abington, that one kind of just slipped away at the end, and Swarthmore really dominated that first inning to set the tone. And like Andy said, receiving votes in the top 25 poll. I mean, and this is what Coach Kopsky told us in our interview with him earlier this season, is that they load some of these tougher opponents on the schedule, and it's a way for them to kind of get used to what it's like to be a tough team. Like, this is what they want to be. They want to be, like Swarthmore, Abington. They want to be like this. And while the results might not come at the moment, it's what they're aspiring to be as they get into conference play and even potentially the playoffs. So these are good tests. Hopefully it's helping them as we get closer to the end of the season, and, big test versus Newman this weekend. We'll see how they do with Stockton later today.
Yeah, that is important. Connor noted the Money Macs do have a big 3-game Atlantic East Conference series this weekend, opening Friday at home against Newman at 3 p.m. Then they'll head down to Newman on Saturday for the doubleheader. So these are 3 important games. This is a series you need to try to take 2 out of 3, because Newman has been one of the stronger teams in the conference this year and going to be a team you're battling for playoff position with. So important games for the baseball team this week. Moving along, take a look at what we have coming up. In women's lacrosse will return to action on Wednesday when they visit Marymount. They played early in the week last week. We talked about their game last week on the show, and they will visit Marymount on Wednesday afternoon at 4 p.m. for a 4 p.m. game against the defending Atlantic East Conference champions. And then they'll be on the road again on Saturday when they visit Gwynnett Mercy for an important Atlantic East Conference game as they're battling. They're going to be one of those teams that's looking to battle for that 4th playoff spot in the conference. So Gwynnett will be a team. Immaculata and Gwynnett will be battling for those one of those spots in the playoffs. So kind of an important game for them. Definitely this week, 2 games in conference play, because you're now pretty much into conference play. They have one more non-conference game, so that's kind of an important one for them as well. And then men's lacrosse returns to action this week with visiting Marywood for an important AEC game on Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. before returning home to host Gwynnett Mercy in another huge AEC game on Saturday at 4 p.m. And it's also senior day for Immaculata, to honor their seniors on that same date.
Yeah, it'll be good to get back to lacrosse. And as we mentioned, I believe it was last week, men's lacrosse only has the one home game this month here at Draper Walsh Stadium for senior day on Saturday. So they'll have some road games that they'll take care of business at. And after Saturday, maybe we'll get a home playoff game. You never know. The schedule will shake out. And women's lacrosse, hopefully they can keep that momentum going. They've had some good wins in their last couple, especially that Notre Dame and Maryland game that we discussed last time. We'll see how they can stack up against some of these teams in the conference. The Marywood game was a tough one, but hopefully Marymount will be a different result.
I think now will be a good time to bring in our guests, and we'll be back with our guests, Eliana Szatkowski and Frankie Brunkel from the women's flag football team after this break on the Tuesday Talk IU Athletics podcast.
And welcome back to the Tuesday Talk IU Athletics podcast. This is Larry Dielman here taking over for Andy Alvarez. We are joined by our guests this week, Eliana Szatkowski and Frankie Brunkel from the Immaculata women's flag football team. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Hello. Hello.
How did you guys get your start playing flag football?
Well, growing up, I always wanted to play football, but there was never really like an opportunity for me to play. And in high school, I couldn't play because I had softball during that season. But then in college, I got the opportunity. And last year, I really enjoyed it. So I just decided to come back this year. And it's really fun.
For me, growing up, my younger brother always played tackle football, and like Eliana, I always wanted to play. But him playing made me interested. And then my freshman year of high school, they introduced flag football at my high school, and I tried out and I made the team, and I liked it.
So for both of you, what's been the most fun part of this season so far?
I think that the first game when we played Marymount and we won, that really like showed us how good we are and like set the momentum for the whole season and gave us confidence. So that was really fun to be a part of.
I agree. The best part of the season was the home opener sweep. And after that game, I just realized that we actually work very well together as a team because in practice, you don't really know until you get in the game.
Eliana, you have 11 receiving touchdowns this season. What has been clicking on the offense so far in this campaign?
I think that every time I score, it's a team effort and it goes in with like the blocking, the passing, the play calls, and when it all works together, I can score. So that really works. And just practicing these plays over and over again so that when we get into the game, we can really perfect it. And that really helps too.
And you're also leading the team in interceptions. And with flag football, obviously, you guys play both sides of the field instead of normal football, where usually you just play one side of the field. How do you balance offense and defense mentally during games?
When I'm on offense and I'm scoring, I think it gives the momentum for the defense and it helps me to realize how important it is to get a stop. So not let the other team score. So that's how I really like manage both of them.
Frankie, you contribute in rushing, receiving, defense, and special teams. In your collegiate debut, you talked about that sweep of Marymount and Holy Family. You were named the Yankees Conference Defensive Player of the Week. You had 14 solo tackles, an interception, and a pass deflection. How do you prepare for such a wide role?
For me, I just really actively participate in practice. Like, it might be hard because I'm doing so many things at once, but once you're on the field, it's kind of just like a switch flips when you do different things. And it's all mental for me. And even if you make a mistake, you just have to keep going and just don't let that affect how you play for the rest of the game.
This team has had a lot of contributors on both sides of the ball. What makes the chemistry work for you guys?
So for our chemistry to work, we kind of all work together because most of us play multiple positions. And even those who are on the sideline, everyone is always prepared to get in if need be.
I agree with that too. And I think that this team has a lot of chemistry because we're all like best friends on and off the field. So I think that really helps play a part when we get onto the field to all connect well. And we just have a really good time at practice and it all plays a big part in the success of this team.
So you guys both went to Archbishop Ryan High School, and Frankie, you played in high school. The Philadelphia Catholic League was one of the first to get into flag football. So how did playing at Ryan and in the Catholic League help you prepare for playing in college?
For me, playing at Ryan in the PCL prepared me because of the amazing coaches I had. Even though most of us were new to the sport, we never gave up, especially most of us were already athletes. So we already had a sense of what we were doing. And the PCL itself is just so competitive in every sport. So them adding flag football was just a good addition. In and at Ryan and in the PCL, I built great relationships with my teammates. And now I even play against them in college on other teams. So I feel like it's just making the flag football college experience better.
Let's talk about the team in general. So why don't you guys give us who's the funniest teammate, the most communicative on the field, most energy, the great player on the team that people might not notice, whatever you guys want to say about your teammates.
Well, I think the funniest on the team is Frankie, actually, because she just always has so much energy on the field and she just makes us all laugh. And she's just really fun to be around.
For me, I think the glue play on our team is our teammate Ellie. She's a graduate student and she can't always be there all the time, but when she's there, she really hypes everyone up, keeps us motivated, is always telling us little things like to stay hydrated, and she's just overall a really great teammate to us.
And for who talks the most on the team and communicates the most, I think that would be Teresa because she's always locked in the game. She's always talking, communicating, making sure we're all on the same page. And I think that's a really good trait for her to have. And she's a really great teammate.
With it being D3 week, why don't you guys tell us what makes D3 athletics stand out to you and what it means to be a D3 athlete?
D3 athletics stand out to me because I feel like in other divisions, your sport may feel like a full-time job. But here we primarily focus on athletics while still being able to balance a great team. And I think that's like how college should be, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. Me and Frankie are both nursing majors, and being able to balance that with athletics is why I chose D3. So it wouldn't take over my whole life, and I could still have fun playing the sports. And I'm able to play two sports, even like one in the fall, one in the spring. So I think that's really great to be a part of.
Well, we thank you guys for coming in today. A lot of great insight on the flag football team, and you guys have a big tri match on Saturday with Marywood and Eastern, and then next Tuesday you guys will finish out the home slate for the regular season with Marywood again. So a lot to look forward to at that. But thank you guys for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me as well.
And we'll be back after this quick break on the Tuesday Talk IU Athletics podcast.
So with it being D3 week this week, D3 week brings all student athletes together across Division III in the country. So SAC plans a lot of events. We talk about this at the conference meetings all the time. We always have this week circled whenever you start planning things for the year. So for D3 week this week, I'll tell you all what we have planned. Starting off with today, we had a poster signing outside dining hall, which everyone signed, like saying how much they love being D3, what makes them proud to be a Mighty Mac, stuff like that. Tomorrow we'll have a social media campaign talking why the athletes chose D3. And on Thursday at the softball game, that will be a whiteout followed by dollar dogs also being sold. Friday we'll have the annual Volley a Wish Sack tournament, which all the teams come and play volleyball, which is always a fun event. And Saturday is our main day with a game day tailgate sponsored by SAC and SGA. There will be face painting, music, food, beanbag toss, and a battle bounce while flag football is playing. Tennis will be in action too against Newman at the tennis courts that start at noon, and then men's lacrosse for their senior day against Glen Mercy at 4 p.m. So a lot going on for D3 week this week.
Welcome back to the Tuesday Talk IU Athletics podcast. Well, that will about wrap things up for this week. It was a good interview there, and we look forward to the week ahead. And with all the events we have here on Saturday, it's D3 week, and also it should be an exciting time here on campus at Immaculata. Hope you'll be able to join us, and we hope you'll join us next time on the Tuesday Talk IU Athletics podcast. Roll Max.